Family adopts a puppy. When it starts to grow, they're shocked to see what it turns into. The Johnson family had been discussing getting a new pet for months. They wanted a furry friend to add to their already tight-knit family. The kids, Jacob and Sophie, had always wanted a dog, and after some back and forth, the family decided that a puppy would be the perfect addition. They spent weeks searching, scrolling through endless pet adoption sites and visiting several animal shelters. The kids had very specific criteria: a puppy that was small, cute and playful, but after several unsuccessful attempts they were starting to lose hope. One day while Jacob and Sophie were out playing, they stumbled upon the local animal shelter. They had walked past it a million times, but this time they decided to go in and check it out. That's when they saw him, a small fluffy puppy with big round eyes that seemed to sparkle in the light. They immediately fell in love with him, and the feeling was mutual. The puppy wagged his tail and licked their faces, and they knew they had found their new pet. They ran back home bursting with excitement and told their parents about their discovery. The Johnsons were hesitant at first, but after seeing how much the kids had bonded with the puppy, they agreed to adopt him. They went back to the shelter and filled out all the necessary paperwork. The shelter staff told them that the puppy was a mixed breed, but they weren't sure what kind. The Johnsons didn't care. They were just happy to have found their new furry friend. As they drove home, the family was giddy with excitement. They had finally found their new pet, and they couldn't wait to introduce him to their home. They decided to name him Max, and the kids were already talking about all the fun things they were going to do with him. But little did they know their lives were about to change in ways they could never have imagined. Hey there, viral videos here. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button and click the notification bell. We post the most beautiful, amazing and scary videos every single day. Let's proceed with the video. The weeks passed by and Max quickly settled into his new home. He was everything the Johnson family had hoped for: cute, playful and full of energy. But as time went on, the family noticed that Max was growing at an alarming rate. It wasn't just his size that was changing. It was his behavior as well. Max had become incredibly intelligent, learning tricks and commands faster than any dog they had ever had before. He seemed to have an innate understanding of the world around him, and his senses were sharper than ever. He could hear the slightest noise from miles away, and his sense of smell was so acute that he could pick up scents that were days old. But there was something else about Max that the Johnsons couldn't quite put their finger on. His bark was deeper, almost like a growl, and his eyes seemed to glow in the dark. They started to feel uneasy around him, as if he was more than just a puppy. As Max continued to grow, the Johnsons noticed that he was no longer just a playful pup. He was becoming more aggressive, and his instincts were starting to take over. He would growl at strangers and bark at the slightest noise. The family was becoming increasingly worried about what was happening to their beloved pet. One night, as they were all sitting around the living room, Max suddenly started to howl. It was a long, mournful howl that sent shivers down their spines. They tried to calm him down, but he wouldn't stop. It was as if he was trying to communicate something to them, something important. As the days went on, Max's behavior became more erratic. He started to spend more time outside, prowling around the yard and sniffing at the air. His growls grew louder and his eyes seemed to glow even brighter. The family was starting to get scared, and they didn't know what to do. Little did they know that Max was growing into something much more than just a puppy. His transformation was only just beginning, and it was going to change their lives forever. The Johnsons were starting to realize that something was seriously wrong with Max. They had never seen a dog behave in such a strange and unpredictable way before. They were at a loss for what to do, and they knew they needed to find out what was causing his behavior. One day, while doing some research online, they stumbled upon a strange and ancient legend. It was about a creature known as a lycanthrope, a being that could transform from a human into a wolf. The legend said that these creatures were incredibly powerful, and they possessed abilities that were beyond human comprehension. As they read more about lycanthropes, the Johnsons began to realize that this was what Max was becoming. They couldn't believe it, but the evidence was all there: his strange behavior, his glowing eyes, his aggressive nature. It all made sense now. They tried to keep their findings a secret, not wanting to scare the kids or anyone else in the neighborhood, but they knew that they had to do something before it was too late. They reached out to an old friend who was an expert in the supernatural, hoping he could shed some light on the situation. When their friend arrived, he was shocked by what he saw. He confirmed that Max was indeed a lycanthrope, and he warned them that he was still in the early stages of his transformation. He explained that lycanthropes were incredibly dangerous and that they could cause havoc if they weren't properly trained and controlled. The Johnsons were terrified, but they knew they had to take action. They started working with their friend to train Max, hoping that they could prevent him from causing any harm. They spent hours every day teaching him how to control his instincts and how to use his newfound abilities for good. As the days passed, Max began to change. His growls grew softer and his eyes stopped glowing. He started to show love and affection towards his family again, and he stopped acting aggressively towards strangers. The Johnsons were overjoyed to see their beloved pet back to his old self, and they knew that they had made the right decision in keeping him. But little did they know that Max's transformation was far from over. He was still growing, still changing, and still becoming something more powerful than anyone could have ever imagined, and they were about to find out just how much he had grown. Max's transformation had been a long and difficult journey for the Johnsons, but they had finally come to accept him for who he was. He was no longer just a pet, he was a member of the family, and they loved him just the same. As Max continued to grow, the Johnsons watched in amazement as he developed new abilities. He could run faster than any dog they had ever seen, and his strength was incredible. He could leap over tall fences in a single bound, and his senses were sharper than ever. But even with all of his newfound power, Max never forgot who he was or where he came from. He remained loyal and loving to his family, and he always put their needs before his own. One day, while out for a walk, Max and the Johnsons stumbled upon a group of hikers who had lost their way in the woods. They were cold, hungry, and scared, and they had been wandering for hours, but when they saw Max, they knew they were safe. Max sprang into action, leading the hikers back to safety and protecting them from any danger that they encountered along the way. His bravery and loyalty amazed the Johnsons, and they knew that they had made the right decision in keeping him. As the Johnsons watched Max help the hikers, they realized that he was more than just a lycanthrope. He was a hero. He had used his powers for good, and he had saved lives. They knew that they could never be prouder of him. From that day forward, the Johnsons accepted Max for who he was, knowing that he would always be there to protect them and help them whenever they needed him. They realized that sometimes things aren't always what they seem, and that sometimes the most unexpected things can turn out to be the best things in life. As they headed back home, Max ran ahead, his tail wagging and his eyes shining with joy. They knew that he was happy and that he was finally at peace with who he was, and they knew that they would love him no matter what he turned into. What do you think about this story? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you for watching. See you next time.